This week's podcast is presented by GK Calls, Migra Ammunition, Gibraltar Duck Hunters Association, Gibraltar Boatyard, Turtle Box, Gator Decoys, Hunt Proof, Cooler Guard, Pattern Pros, Hodag, and last but not least, I'd like to have a huge shout out to Brian Ellithorpe for all of the support that he does behind the scenes. Now let's get into today's episode. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Great Lakes Outdoors podcast. Today, Trav and I are sitting here with a special guest, Mike from Draw Land Management. Mike, how you doing today, man?
Oh, great. Thanks for having me on.
I'm looking forward to this. Trav and I have been talking, land management, and just he's doing a bunch of projects over there, and I've been thinking about doing projects not far from you in reality.
Right.
So I'm excited to kind of pick your brain about it and maybe just talk about some deer rules, regulations, since it's changing every other day, and just go from there.
All right. Sounds good. I'm in.
So do you want to just explain to the people who Mike is, what Full Draw Land Management is, what do you do, your background and all of that stuff?
Absolutely. So my name is Mike Pepor. I own Full Draw Land Management, and it's a habitat and consultation company with a lean into deer hunting. What we do is we come out to your property. I'll do a habitat consultation, show you where we need to put food plots, and find out where your stands are at. I'll tell you if you need to put your stands around, if your access is correct. And we'll get your property dialed in. My company is geared more towards landowners that have between 40 and 120 acres. And a lot of times you go on someone's property and you see that, hey, you know what? They call me, they say, Mike, my property shut down in the middle of October. What do you think happened? Well, I'll go out and I'll check it out. I'll say, well, you have got a stand sitting over this food plot, and how many times have you hunted it since October 1st? Oh, I hunt it every day I can. Well, what's the weather look like? Oh, it's 83 degrees, just out here walking through the food plot. We'll get their access figured out. We'll get the stand set up for AM and PM, and what that'll do is, what a wind direction, that determines a lot. I've been to properties that are a 9 out of 10. I've been to some that are a 2 or a 3 out of 10. The goal is just to move that property up so that the hunt is enjoyable for the client.
Right.
Take their kids out and have a good time. And at the same time, make sure that the property doesn't shut off before they're ready to get hunt for the year.
So you're doing all aspects of the hunt, right? You're going from when they're hunting to the food plots to the stand setup, everything. You're not just doing the food plot side of things. You're doing everything.
Right. That's correct. There's as much habitat consultation work as there is actually boots on the ground and land labor. Habitat, controlled burns, food plots, trail system.
Now, and you do a lot of hinge cutting as well, too, right?
It depends on the property.
Okay.
Not every property needs hinge cuts. A lot of times hinge cuts work great if you don't have a lot of cover and you need side cover, but not every property needs it. If you've got closed canopy forest, the first thing I'd suggest you do is have a forestry man out and buy some timber off of you if it makes sense.
Right.
Then once you have the sunlight in, you certainly need to take care of any invasive species before they start getting a hold of your property. And then if you don't have a lot of side cover, it's an open area, some hinge cuts may be what you need. Not every maybe 20, 30% of the property is hinge cutting.
No, that's what basically Trav's property is kind of overtaken. It looked like from the 2:00 golf ride he took me on the other night. But isn't that kind of how yours is, though, Trav? Like the undergrowth is just so thick and dense.
Yeah, the undergrowth is pretty thick, and I mean the upper story. I don't know if that's the right terminology or not. Like it's not like it's super covered, right? There's still some good sunlight coming in. It's just the understory is very just overtaken by honeysuckles and I have a ton of grapevines on my property, which then chokes out trees. There's just a lot of things where it's just those small things you got to take care of on the property.
And a lot of property in Michigan is covered in autumn olive and honeysuckle, and those are both invasive. And if you don't control that will eventually take over most of your property. I'm not saying you need to remove it all at once because that's good cover, but at the same time, if left unchecked, it'll get so thick that you don't want to move through it. What I've been doing on my property is my property was closed canopy when I bought it. I put a driveway in, got out the chainsaw, and I removed probably 15 to 20% of the tree canopy throughout the property. And it took cutting, I was out there every weekend, cutting down 30, 40 trees every weekend. And I'd take the tractor and move things around, create berms. And then I would go back through and I would remove some autumn olive and some honeysuckle. Not all at once, because if you start removing it all, you have no cover left. Yeah. And then at that point, it seemed like the deer population, the turkey, grouse, the rabbits, That seemed to spike up after that.
No, I do know the canopy light is pretty big on the turkey aspect of things, whether it's the poults and I know that the canopy light could do a lot of good to have more than fully covered up top. Is it the same with deer though?
Yeah, well, here's the thing: if the sunlight doesn't get to the forest floor, you don't have any food.
That's true.
And I look at a property, it looks like a park. There's a lot of cutting that needs to happen before it's good deer.
That's true.
If people think of the deer woods as actually a park-like setting, and it really is just the opposite. You need to have enough vegetation growing up, good vegetation growing up,
right?
Feed the deer. 60% of a deer's diet is woody browse and forbs that grow up naturally in the ground. And if you have a concentrated leaf litter and no sunlight getting through, you don't have much food for deer. I saw a study that said that if you increase sunlight on your property, on your forest floor by 30%, you can have up to 4 tons of food per acre just based on that.
Really?
Yeah, which is quite a bit.
Wow. And that's holding deer all year round at that point. I mean, it would really affect that.
It is. But so many people get so in love with, I don't want to cut down my trees. It's, it looks pretty. Sometimes it makes sense to sell your marketable timber and then come back through and with a little tweezer effect, start removing trees.
Right.
Hinge cuts at that point might make sense. They might not. But it's and there's no one size fits all for any property. I've been to 37 properties this year.
Wow.
And they're all different. I've been to open fields that need cover. I've been to areas like you're talking about where it's so thick that you need to create a little maze and pocket effect for the deer to get through and feel comfortable. There's a balancing act, too thick and not thick enough. And you got to find that sweet spot to have really good deer habitat.
Might be careful. All the trees are taking out. The Lorax might come down and get you or something. This little orange guy hop out of the trees and start running after you.
Yeah, and there's another thing too. If you're a tree stand hunter, you need to have tree stacking for back cover.
Yeah.
It's not removing too much canopy. You don't have the back cover behind you, and you don't have that tree stacking effect to hide yourself when you're actually in the season.
Trav, you got a question?
Yeah, I was saying is one of the big things you see on all the properties you go to is the taking some trees out, prescribed burns, like that kind of thing is kind of one of the bigger problems that you see on majority of your properties. I know you said some of the properties you've been to were, needed cover and needed trees planted, but like with established woodlots and stuff, is that the biggest issue you usually see with the deer woods?
Yeah, the lowest hole in the bucket's always cover. If you don't have cover, you can have the best food plot. I'd come out and plant a great food plot for you. If you don't have the cover that's adjacent to that food plot, you're not going to hold deer. You might have deer all over at night, but when you want to hunt them, it may not be there. Or if you have adjacent cover, even a 5 or 6 acre area that holds deer consistently, that's going to create your daytime movement. Without cover, you're putting yourself in the road.
Now, when did you first start doing land management?
Professionally in 2020.
Okay.
I started the business in 2020.
What made you want to start?
I thought that my property could do better. I had a decent hunt. It was enjoyable for us, but I thought there was something that we could do to make it better. And I watched, just like everybody else, I watched the big names in the habitat arena, Sturgis and Higgins and
LaPratt.
LaPratt, yeah. And I learned that, you know what? You don't have to just accept the fact that your property sucks. There's so many things that you can do to improve it. Even if you take a property from a 4 to a 6.
Yeah.
That'll change things quite a bit.
Now, what was the hardest part getting involved with it all? Like you start this up, you notice that, your property, you feel like you could do better. How do you get your name out and respected enough for people to trust you to was that a hard kind of thing to do?
It was to break into the habitat arena. You need to prove yourself. And I did a lot of work for next to nothing.
Yeah.
I was, I did $90 habitat consultation.
Wow.
I'd spend 4 hours on your property, walk around, give you a beautiful map and aerial photo of where I think things be.
Wow.
My name got out there bigger every time I did one. And next thing you know, I'm getting the neighbor, hey man, I saw what you did for Grant.
Right.
Customer of mine. And he's, now all of a sudden he's got daylight pictures of 140s, 150s on the property, which doesn't sound like a great deer, but in Michigan, that's a fantastic deer.
I don't know. I think it's a damn good deer all around, to be honest. The deer hunting world is so crazy to me because I thought the waterfowl world was like cutthroat, but you get like harassed if you shoot a 120 in Michigan, or just in general, anywhere you go, it's like, man, if that's a hell of a deer, right? It's crazy.
I got a lot of 110s and 120s on my wall.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's almost like everybody is almost nervous when they do shoot the deer. Not everybody, but a lot of people are nervous when they do shoot it. They're like, oh man, what are people going to think of this deer? Or, should I have let it go? Or, there's just so much like.
And that's a shame.
It is.
There's the antler shaming that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was guilty of that too. I cut my teeth hunting state land. And I remember walking out of the woods, dragging a little 6-point. I was so proud of it. And I was probably 24, 25 years old, dragging the 6-point out, and some couple of guys drive by and they're like, why would you shoot something that small? And I was so proud of it up until that point.
That's a shame. It gets people out of it. And we'll get into that too with the hunters nowadays per se. So the properties that you manage or maintain, you go out there multiple times a year and kind of just groom it all up on some of them in any way?
As needed. I mean, I have some that are pretty much, hey, I'm going to call a couple of guys. Hey, I'm going to stop by your property. I'm driving through the area. Do you mind if I look around and see what needs to be done? And there's an opportunity on most of those. And I'm selling them an opportunity to have a better deer hunt. But at the same time, I'll take the work as well. But some of them, I got one guy, I got him so dialed in, all I need to do is spray his plots a couple times a year and mow his access path.
And that's it.
That's it.
Wow.
He's dialed in. I got another one saying, this guy shoots giant bucks too. And he's got the property to the point where all he needs to do is show up and hunt. I get to do the fun part, in my opinion. And that's what I love to do, is to enjoy the benefits.
It's kind of nice. It's almost like the same thing with going back to like waterfowl for me, like doing the scouting aspect, showing, like finding where the birds are, then bringing everybody that hasn't seen what's going to happen in the morning per se, and like just seeing like the reactions. Like it's got to be a great feeling for you to set up a whole property and food plots and trails and whatever, or you put this tree stand where you think is best. Like the persons that had the best opportunity and the successful. It's got to be.
Yeah, it's nice to get that text from a customer, the picture of his son holding the antler,
right?
Nice deer. The granddaughter shot a doe out of the stand that I helped him set up.
That's awesome.
And it may be something as simple as just taking a stand that's 60 yards this way and moving it into a different tree on the other side of something. Because I can see things and you learn from every experience.
That's true.
I've spent a lot of time myself in the woods on my own property. I used to hunt state land, and that's a school of hard knocks.
That'll teach you something right there. That'll teach you something. What do you think the biggest mistake that hunters make, like with hanging tree stands? What do you think?
So I think there's 3 problems that people run into, and I see the same 3 problems on almost every property. Number 1 is access.
Mm-hmm.
You think, well, I've got this food plot sitting here. I'm going to put a box line right here on the edge of the food plot and go in. I'm going to hunt. I'm going to blow deer out when I go in. And if you don't do that, you're going to definitely blow them out on the way out. And they walk right through the food plot on the way out. They blow out every deer. And then by October 20th, they're calling me going, hey, man, I need to fix something here. What's going on? And it's just moving that box blind or tree stand to an area that's maybe 50, 60 yards off of that food plot.
Sound familiar, Trav?
Never heard of something like that before.
Yeah, it sounds like a conversation we just had at the 2:00 golf cart ride that me and you talked about.
Yeah, and I think you need emphasis on it wasn't 2:00 in the afternoon, it was 2:00 in the morning. That's a little emphasis on that.
Some of my best experiences happen at 2:00.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. And that literally the same. That's literally exactly what I told you when I seen that too. The blind and the tree stand.
After I had said something about it.
I don't remember that part, but I'm just saying. All right, go ahead.
No.
This may be unpopular opinion, but if you hunt over your food plot specifically from October 1st through November 15th, you hunt directly over a food source, a destination food source. I'm not talking about a little micro plot, little quarter acre. But if you've got a 5-6 acre field that you're hunting over and you get in and get out, you bump deer almost every time you get out. I don't care how good you are, unless your access is bulletproof, which I only know a couple of properties that have perfect access. Sooner or later, you're going to blow up your property. I like to treat my food plots like a sanctuary. I don't go in and out of them at all during the huntings. What we do is we have electric bikes. We leave the property, we ride down the road and come in the backside. We ride our bikes about a mile down the road and sneak in the backside.
Really?
Yeah. We leave our food plot as a sanctuary. Never intrude on it. And my closest stand to my food plot would be about 80 yards, 90 yards off of that food source.
Huh.
And you'd be amazed how easy it is to get away with a lot of scent and a lot of movement when they're not on guard. When a deer enters a food plot, what do they think? There's danger here. I know it because I saw that guy get out of that. I saw somebody get out of that box at dark.
Right.
Where, I'm riding down the road. It takes some effort. Come back in the backside of the property. You're not walking in or out of the food source.
It's a good way of looking at it.
And I like to hunt closer to a food source, not on a food source, but closer to a food source in the afternoon. But I never walk through the food source on my way out. And in the morning, I'm 400 or 500 yards off a food source, close to a bedding area.
So you're basically hunting the transition
every time, without fail. And I try and advise clients too that I would say, hey, I know you love that box flying because you get to see a lot of deer
right
for a couple of weeks. Let's hang a stand 100 yards off the plot and see what we. And once you get that light bulb to turn on for them, they never want to sit in that box flying again. They want to, hey, I'm going to sit in that ladder stand we set up 100 yards away. And then even further in the morning, I get way off of food source in the morning because number one, it's not productive. And number two, you're trying to get back to the bedding area.
You keep that same mindset for kids too? Like say, I have a young kid that wants to go out and it's probably easier to be able to get that deer into range on a food source versus hunting a transition zone. Would you keep that same mindset?
No, I would not. If you're trying to get a kid to kill a deer, put them on food, keep them entertained, excited about it. And I'll tell you, especially as a bow hunter, I hunt with a recurve and I also hunt with a compound bow. And you want to talk about something challenging, stopping the deer on a trail quickly enough, especially during the rut when they're crazy and they're chasing doe. Get a deer to stop where you want them to can be challenging.
Oh, for sure.
So with a kid, put him on a food source. Make sure that he can get in or she can get in and out without blowing the field out.
Right.
I think you'll have pretty good luck. But if you're trying to kill mature deer and you're wanting to see mature deer, a lot of sits, pull off that food source a little bit, see what happens. I'm not saying abandon the food altogether because there is a time that after the rut, I am going to hunt over food source.
Yeah, they got to build back up and everything.
But I'm not blowing out my food source in the early season because I like to hunt most of the season. And if you don't, if you're blowing out food sources day in and day out, by the time it gets good, the property's shut off.
That's the hardest part for me, and I've talked about it a handful of times on here, where I kind of showed you the map, the aerial view of our spot, and we're basically hunting woods that are just islands out in the middle of the field. So it's hard to sneak in and out in a sense where, if that deer's bedded on that tree line right there, he's seen us from where we get out of the truck all the way walking in, and there's nothing we can really do about it.
I've got a client like that. He walks through a farmer's field to get to his 27 acres of woods. And I told him, I said, what you need to do is ask that farmer if he would plant some sorghum or some switchgrass or some HD screen just on that perimeter so you can sneak in on the inside, on the roadside to get in.
So I've thought about that too. So I actually have to go through 2 different farmers' properties to get back to the tree line. But I mean, I guess it's always a possibility of something like happening. You know what I mean? No matter where you're at. Like my dad's deer he shot last year. I actually had him go the long way and take the very west end, walk up that edge, and then walk up the hedgerow, cutting the 2 fields off. And then he snuck in the woods. And I think if he would have went the other way, he would have blown that deer right out of the woods before he even probably seen it.
And deer are a little bit more predictable than people think. Once you figure out where they want to bed, where they want to feed, the rest is just putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And like I said earlier, we ride our e-bikes a mile out of the way to hunt 200 yards from where we wanted to hunt. We're coming in the backside, the wind's at our face a lot of times. We're not blowing through sanctuaries and known deer bedding areas.
Do you do a lot of grass, like the screening? Do you do a lot of screening?
I do. There's a couple switchgrass is pretty permanent screen, and that works out really well. I'm not crazy about it for bedding areas because it can get so thick if you plant it too heavy that you won't want to use it.
Mm-hmm.
As far as a screen, I love screening any food source with switchgrass.
I've been seeing a video popping up on social media, and the guy's literally got a giant X in his food plot with his redneck blind in the middle of it, and he's got a 2-track down one way so he can literally walk down. He's got grass on both sides, so the deer never even know. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Well, which way is the wind blowing?
Well, yeah, that's the thing there for sure. But just a perfect setup to where he could walk down. If there's deer in there, they would never even know he's in there.
Right.
Perfect scenario. We do, I don't know. Getting back into it, and I think we talked about it a little bit. I don't know, there's so much stuff that I think people overdo on properties and overcomplicate it for themselves. I feel like, like you said, they can be unpredictable, but it's like if you get a deer that's not real pressured, I feel like it's you can sneak in and out on the right winds and the right days and not, I don't know, have better chances, opportunities at those deer per se.
For sure. If the deer that doesn't know you're in there is the best one, the easiest one
Yeah.
to kill, right?
Yeah, I guess that was a stupid thing on my part to say, but
it totally makes sense though.
I don't know.
You check the biggest box that people see. And I see the same 4 or 5 problems on every property where access is number one. The hunting, just because they have a day off, is another big one. I'm going to go hunt. Oh, it's an east wind and you don't have a stand set up for the east wind. I'm going to sit there anyway. I've got some time off today.
I'm a victim of that.
We all are. I mean, we want to hunt. That's what we love to do.
That's true. That is true. Because, I mean, especially during the rut, it's just almost one of those things where I think about it and it's like, you don't know where they're coming from. You don't know. I've seen deer run, a mile in the open field to a different woodlot, and it's just, you never know what's going to happen, I guess.
Throw every rule out the woods.
That's true.
During the rut, because anything can happen.
That is true.
I don't care what the weather is. About Halloween weekends or about November 13th, I'm going to be in the woods. I don't care what the weather is.
What is another, because you said there's 3 biggest things for the tree stands, going back a little bit on that. The placement was the one.
Placement, access, those are the 2 biggest ones. And then, you need to buy a quality tree. These guys that go to Dunham's, but you buy the $99 special, you hang it up and you climb up in it. It's tink, clink, clink.
Yeah.
People understand that deer have fantastic noses, but they also have great hearing. And that clink, when your bow hits the side of the ladder stand, or when you're climbing up and, you got 4 pieces of metal that clink up against each other, you're going to educate everything within your shot, which is sometimes.
I ended up taking, so I hung up a new stand last year where I shot mine at this past year. And it was clinking pretty bad to where my buck that I was after, not the one that I shot, the one I was after was bedding. He started bedding like right on the fence row because he knew where I was at. And I felt like, I listened to Tony LaPratt one time and he said that people should put their bedding on the property lines per se, or next
to bounce deer off
right.
their neighbors. Yep.
And I almost felt like that deer seen the same video I did or something, because he would bed right on that fence line. So he knew when I would walk in there, because it's only a couple of trees on the property, he would hear me going up because it was clinking so much or whatever it may have been. But he would know when I would get there and then just, look at me, flip me the hoof and go the other way.
Right.
To where.
Tony's sharp.
Oh, yeah.
You got to give him a lot of credit. He knows what he's doing. He's killed more big bucks than both of us in this room, I can promise you that.
For sure. It was. I ended up putting electrical tape around all of my clinking points per se, just so I would stop, be a little bit quieter.
Right.
I don't know, but all those small details I think help out.
You weld them together too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that too. Do you use the decoy during deer season at all?
I don't.
I got one last year. I probably look like an idiot out there.
It works until it doesn't.
Yeah. I had some smaller bucks come out. For me personally, it was since I do hunt the fields, the last 2 years have been the most successful I've been at, even rattling deer in or grunting. But it always seemed like they would hang up at 100 yards out and then look into the field and never see anything.
Right.
So I was like, well,
in that case, the decoy work out perfect.
Right.
My property's not set up for it because it's so thick.
Then you're solid without it then.
Right.
Did you have anything, Trev?
Yeah, I was going to go back to the consultation piece of it. So when you go out to a property, you meet with the person, what's all included on that consultation? Is it kind of you have something that you go out, you have your specific thing you go to right away, and you have this sheet you work off of what you recommend for this, and this, or is it going based off the client, what they're asking for?
No, that's a great question. So if you hire me to do a consultation, depending on the size of the property, it'll either be me or my business partner. And sometimes they take about 4 hours, sometimes they take all day, depending on the size of the property. But what you'll get is boots on the ground, it's a lot of experience between the 2 of us, and I'll walk around and I'll figure out where your food sources are.
Mm-hmm.
If you need a food source, some properties don't. Where your trail system should be, and I like a wagon wheel spoke type of trail system, so you can get it out from I'll design a satellite image, show you where things need to be cut, where stands should be. We can also find out what stands are AM and PM stands, which stand you should hunt for each specific wind, how your access should be for each one of those stands as well. And I do work off a sheet. I've got 10 different criteria. And after giving it some thoughts, I'll go through and I'll, well, got a nice piece of property. Each thing is graded on a 1 through 10 scale, and cumulatively it's 100 points. And the best property I've been at was an 83. So it tells me that everybody needs a little bit of work.
Yeah.
The biggest thing, cover is huge. Access is also big, but your neighbors, how's the neighborhood? If the neighborhood sucks and, and nothing wrong with shooting small bucks, but if every one of your neighbors, if you own 100 acres and you've got 15 properties that border that 100 acres and everybody hunts and everybody shoots whatever they want to shoot, which it's their tag they have every right to, you're going to have a hard time getting deer into that next age class, no matter what I do on your property. So the neighborhood is probably the biggest determining factor of how big your property is.
Yeah.
So is that part of like the consultation where you're going to the property and I'm like, hey, like get to know your neighbors, try to get on the same page as them, try to like do something along those lines?
Yeah, if it's important to you. Some people just want to go out and shoot deer, and you know what?
Yeah.
I'm probably going to be able to still help you with that. But for the people that want to sit in a stand and see 3.5-year-old bucks, 4.5-year-old bucks, we can usually get that tweaked for you. But to your point, I'd suggest that in the off season, but you don't want to do this during the season because everybody's at level 20
right
on that point. But June or July, go to your neighbor's house, knock on their door, bring them a 6-pack of their favorite beverage, and have a conversation on them. And it should go something like, hey, my name's Mike. Me and my son like to deer hunt. We bought the property behind you, and I'm not telling you what you can and can't shoot because it's not my business to do so, but we are going to pass on the smaller bucks this year. And not sure if you're on the same page or not, but I think that we can get some of the neighbors on board with that. We might have a lot better hunt than what we're used to. And, you're going to, most of the people are okay doing that.
I feel like there's some people that just, without talking to the neighbors or talking to the people around you even, people just assume that they're shooting the smaller deer. And it goes back to everything in general. Communication's key. So, I mean, go over there, talk to them, see how they hunt, see what they're, I don't know. Everybody's not going to tell you what kind of deer they have on their property by any means, but I mean, just be open about what each other's goals are per se. And even if you don't change their minds, I mean, at least you know at that point.
Yeah, right. Sometimes people think, well, I'm going to shoot that small buck because if I don't, my neighbor's going to. And
right.
I'm lucky enough to have some awesome neighbors. I'm able to hunt 100 acres. I've got a guy behind me that owns 80, and I was the smallest. I was the small buck guy for
really
years until I realized after talking to the guy behind me and the guy across the street from me that, hey, no, we're all passing on this kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't pass on, but if you want to have big bucks on your property, they've got to put another year on them.
Right. Just depends on what you want.
Yeah, what your goals are.
Right. That's all it is.
Do you get guys when you go out there and write up the consultation, like, are they like, no, I don't want to do this, I want to do this? Are you strict to what you believe is what you should do, or are you kind of going more towards what the client wants to do?
Well, the client's always right unless they're not, right? And
yeah.
Some guys, I've got a client in particular in my mind that he does not want to move off a food source. He's got this box line that's been set up for, 20 years. He goes, that's where I hunt. That's the spot that I hunt. And I finally got him a couple of years ago to hang a stand off the food source. And it's like, well, your safety net is that food, right? I know I'm going to see deer out of this food source. So why would I want to move off? And there's a paradigm shift there. If you can't get your head off food, it's challenging. But at the end of the day, it's the customer, the client that's paying for the consultation. They pay me for my opinion, but if they're the ones buying the tag and that they're paying the tax properly.
Yeah. I mean, because are you given that expectation though? It's like, hey, like if you keep doing this, do it this way. Like there's a chance that you're going to bump all these deer out. Like you're giving yourself kind of that area, that gray area where like, hey, I'm saying you should be doing this way. This is probably the way that this is the best way you're going to shoot a big deer. But if you want to do it this way, there's a chance that you're going to scare all these deer out of here or something's up.
Oh, well, at a minimum, if they have to hunt over a food source, I'd like to set the food up a little bit, especially if it's a big plot. If it's a 6-7 acre plot, I want to divide it up and thus give them their best chance of being able to kill a big deer. If you don't screen that access in, and it could be simple. That is just planting some switchgrass or some northwoods each screen around their blind so they can get in and out, and then cutting a trail and so they can weave the back way instead of going right through that food source. It's easy at night. They got their headlamp on. They're walking through the food source and got these eyeballs looking at them.
Right.
Like, I didn't ruin anything. Well, you didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, what if so that a client comes up, doesn't want to move the box blind off of the food source? Would there be a way where you say, okay, I'm not going to make this guy, I can't get this guy to budge. Let's just bump that box blind back 50 yards off the food plot for gun season wise. So since you could shoot a 30-06 down here now, you could shoot, 4 miles, but let's bump it off, get the access into the box blind on the back end so that there's not a platform that you're walking on. The deer are still seeing you, but you're walking out the back way. Is that a possibility if they're not wanting to budge off of that food source?
It is, and that's a very good second correction.
Okay.
If I've got to hunt over this food source, let's at least screen it in so you have a chance.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it'd be just kind of just convincing people because everybody's set in their own ways.
It's tough for me.
Yeah.
Really hard.
I couldn't imagine that.
I've got a friend, I think we talked about earlier. He hunts over food sources. His access is full of fruit, and he has about 15 different properties he can hunt. So, that checks a lot of boxes. When you have one piece of property and you have one food source and you hunt over that one food source with bad access, halfway through the season, you're over. Figure out how to ice fish.
Yeah, that's if we even have ice anymore. Every year it seems like it's warming up more and more. That was the hardest part for us. Like before we got the second piece of property, with only the field edges, we were so limited on how many stands we could even hunt. And then obviously you don't want to pressure those deer on doing the same thing over and over and over again. And even like last year, I think the only reason why I shot my deer was I literally sat on the ground when it was, negative 10 degrees outside, but I went the complete opposite way and just sat down something different that they weren't used to seeing. I don't know. I think, being repetition, like just going back and forth every single time the same way, it just hurts people. And sometimes that's all you have, but I don't know.
It's easy. We know what we know. And
yeah, right.
If you're seeing deer on your food source, why wouldn't you want to be there?
Mm-hmm. I think my biggest problem was too, like if there was a doe out in front of me, I didn't really care if I bumped that doe, but then in reality, that doe is kind of leading the way for all the rest of them to come through.
Right.
So it just screwed me over even more.
Yeah, bumping them once or twice isn't a big deal. It's when you're getting out at night and you're climbing down with the headlamp on. You do that a couple of times, all of a sudden that doe is going to look up at your stand every time she comes into that field.
Right.
I killed the first buck on the property that I own. I got busted coming. It was off of a food source, but I was coming down. Pretty nice buck busted me. So a couple days later, I got an idea. I said, I'm going to park my butt another tree stand 60 yards behind that. And I knew the trail that he would come through at.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw him look at my stand right before I shot him, my other stand that
really
was not in yet.
Wow.
It's kind of a those moments where aha, right? It's that aha moment.
Well, and that's one thing too, when you're talking about you got AM and PM stands and you're going to these properties and allowing these people to understand that. They're not going to get that off of anything but experience.
Right.
So being able to give that to those kind of people that's a selling point right there in itself.
Sure. A lot of people don't understand that there are AM and PM stands. There are a few that overlap, but very few. Those are usually those transition areas.
The overlapping ones are?
The overlapping ones. But I have, on my property, I have 23 stands.
Wow.
It's hard to get set up for an east wind. Most of my stands are set up based on a northwest or northwest or southwest wind. I've got a handful of AM.
Now, what makes it the AM and PM?
So a PM stand, an afternoon stand is generally closer to a food source.
Okay.
Because, they got that destination food plot. They want to get in and they're going to eat
right
half hour before dark, right? Or right after dark. You can cheat a little bit closer to that food source. I'm not saying beyond it, but within 100 yards of the food source, usually with your wind at your favor, that's going to be a PM stand. The AM stand is going to be closer to a bedding area.
Okay.
Bedding area could be a swamp or a thicket because they're leaving that food source early morning before you can probably get your stand.
That makes sense, then. Huh. I don't know. There's just a lot of different things.
Another thing, too, is I like to mix up my hunts a little bit. If I'm going in for a morning stand, it's hard to get on my property without making noise, even though my trail system is groomed and it's all sand. You get in pretty quietly.
Oh, you put sand out there?
It just happened to be.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, man, he's going all out. Holy crap.
A box blade is drag enough to get down to bare dirt and sand under that on my property anyway. But what we do is we do a daybreak hunt where we don't get in a half hour before daybreak. we get in right at daybreak. The wood starts.
That gray area,
Yeah.
gray time.
You don't need a flashlight. The wood starts to wake up. The squirrels are just starting to move around. The ducks are quacking on the lake. And the wind usually picks up a little bit right as the sun comes up. And you can get away with a little bit more noise then, as opposed to, let's get in an hour before the sun comes up. And you're sitting there. If you get in an hour before the sun comes up, you're sitting there. You don't know what you don't know. You made noise coming in. Even with a red headlight, you're still clumsier.
Right.
And then at that point, you're in your stand, permeating the area with your scent, or before the thermals come in and start lifting your scent away.
That makes a lot of sense.
You're stinking that area up for an hour before you can even shoot anything. I get in right at daybreak. I get in my stand. There's squirrels running around. You got some turkeys flapping. They're making noise. Sneak in quietly. And then the thermals help you out tremendously, at least on my property, where the ground heats up a little bit because of the sun, and it lifts your scent right out of there. And I knock on wood, I haven't been winded in probably a year and a half,
Wow.
That's how long you've been doing that for? You've been doing this for about a year and a half, getting in at daybreak and stuff?
We tried that when we started hunting with e-bikes, just because it was challenging to ride through the woods with a flashlight on and not educate everything. So I'm going to say about 7-8 years ago.
Have you hit a tree?
No, I haven't. I have a very, very good green trail system.
All right, that's good. Oh yeah, it's sand.
It's as wide as this room.
Really?
Yeah, and that's probably as important as any other thing, is having a good room manicured trail system that you're not
quiet
on sticks. Now, when
Kyle, he's not going to tell you if you hit a tree either. He would say he didn't hit one, but if you hit one, he's not going to tell us.
I hit a stump and almost up my bow. And
yeah.
Truthful guy.
Yeah.
My ankle.
That's
And it was on the way back from. It was a morning hunt, and it was on the way back from a morning hunt.
Oh, so you could see.
I could see perfectly fine.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's even worse.
Yeah. I wish I had a better excuse. Paying attention.
We had a gym teacher one time come out, and so it was my buddy told him about this spot on state land, and my buddy's dad was actually hunting it, and you had to go down a dike wall to get back to it. So my buddy's dad was out there sitting there, and all of a sudden he sees this guy driving down the dike on the bike. And he's like, "Man, what the heck is this guy doing all the way back here? No one ever comes all the way over here." Well, this guy hit a rock and flipped over the handlebars and rolled down all the bigger rocks on the side, and like damn near rolled into the water, all beat up, jumped on his bike, went right back to the truck, because I would have done the same thing.
Right.
We get back to school the next day, and our gym teacher is just bruised. And we knew it was him, but he wouldn't tell us right away until everybody left. Like, we're like, well, man, what the heck happened to you? Oh, nothing. Don't worry about it. And knowing that we already knew it before he would tell us about it, it was, I don't know, it was kind of...
Hopefully he was wearing a helmet.
Yeah, I don't know if he was, to be honest with you. I don't know, because his face was pretty messed up.
It could be life-changing.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I had a question, too. I completely forgot what it was. So we had a guy on here and talked about hinge cutting and screening and even screening, like, making X's in your food plots, so you have different like food plots all in one, basically.
I just did a post on that.
It's
fantastic advice.
I did see that. When he first told us about that, it was like, holy crap, that's a genius idea to just do that way. Everybody's not in the same, and the deer, searching for does. He always, or I shouldn't say always, but he was saying that he doesn't always like doing hinge cutting, because he said that it might be good for 4 or 5 years, Trav, but after that it dies off,
and there's maintenance involved with it,
and it could be like more predator habitat than deer habitat.
It depends on what the composition of your cover is to begin with on the property.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what, to a lot of people, because it's a big buzzword in the habitat world, let's go out and do some hinge cuts.
Yes.
Get a chainsaw, and number one, it's not the safest thing to do, because you're barber chairing your tree. So you want to make sure, if you do hinge cuts, make sure the trees are 7-8 inches in diameter or smaller. You really got to know what you're doing.
I could see that for sure.
Got to know why you're doing it, most importantly. People just go through and, let's hinge cut this whole area. Well, if you didn't remove some of the canopy, those hinges are going to die. If you hinge the wrong trees, it's not going to work. There's a lot of trees that don't hinge cut well at all. If you do it when it's 20 degrees out or below, it's too cold, the hinge snaps off, you wasted the tree.
So, I mean, there's a whole... Because, I mean, I think you're right. A lot of people just go through and just start cutting trees down, and thinking it's a great idea. And
Yeah, it's rewarding to see that hinge held up.
right.
But if you didn't remove the tree canopy above it, so sunlight gets to that hinge, you just wasted a tree that probably didn't even cut down to begin with.
So what are some trees that are bad for hinge cutting, and what are some trees that are good for hinge cutting?
Okay, great question. Any cedar, any type of conifer is not a good hinge cut candidate, obviously. Some trees would be better to be flush cut, like aspen. Aspen trees regenerate from their lateral root system. So those are better to flush cut. Just cut the tree down altogether and let the stump generate new sprouts. Poplar tree, same thing with those as well. I like hinge cutting maples, hickories, depending on the resource. Some trees you want to have up there for tree stacking too.
Right.
What I like to do when I hinge cut, I drop a big tree first, get it on the ground, and then hinge cut trees laterally across it so that they actually tree trunk stacks on top of that larger tree.
Interesting.
And to what you said, they can become predator traps, predator hangouts.
Right.
So you need to make sure you're doing that in the right area.
I think more than anything, it would be doing too much hinge cutting in one area to really just almost to a point where deer wouldn't even like to be in there in general.
Too thick's too thick, right?
Right. And I feel like if a deer, a deer will, don't get me wrong, I think would go in there, but if he doesn't have good in and out access to that spot, your hinge cutting is just wasted, like you were saying.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, placement, I guess, would probably be your biggest thing.
I like doing diversity pockets where you're taking 1/8 of an acre. You're going to cut down a lot of trees in that area, get the timber on the ground, then go through and do a few hinge cuts. At that point, you have a diversity pocket. You need to have at least a couple of exits and entry points. If the deer can't see from that area well enough to avoid predators, and he doesn't have a couple of escape routes, it's worthless. They're not going to use it.
You're right. Yeah, that's what I'd probably say too, because then it limits those predators even be in there in general too. Even after a few years, I feel like.
And you know what? You can buy traps. I mean, trapping is a lost art.
Man, it is.
It's a lot of fun to do during the off season. I love trapping. It's really rewarding to catch a coyote in a football and make sure you realize, hey, I just saved probably 20 fawns.
That it's funny. I always think about it too. Like, there's got to be a organization like Michigan Trappers Association or something out there, but you just never even hear about it anymore. I know there's not money involved with it, but I mean, man, it's besides like the coyote guys that go out at night. I mean, there's really nobody that does any kind of trapping or predator hunting at all.
Right. It's really rewarding once you get good at it. It's so much fun to walk your trap line.
Well, I bet.
You're saving your turkeys, your pheasants, your rabbits.
Man, with talking to the farmers out there, it's crazy how many of them say that the pheasants used to be all over the place. And I don't know whether that's like the fence rows getting like eliminated completely, or the sprays back in the day destroying the nest, or whatever it may have been. I mean, I'll see some here and there, don't get me wrong, but I mean, not like they were saying. They were saying they were everywhere.
When I was a kid, I used to ride my bike to a field in Canton with my BB gun, and
now it's by a gas station. Though that's the problem.
Yeah, I think it's a Walmart or something.
Yeah, okay, even worse. Right. That's the problem. Or a data center.
Right.
Man, those things are popping up everywhere too.
Yeah, you're right.
That I was talking to my buddy the other day. He's a farmer, kind of right where I hunt at right there, and he's getting the data center's taking up 300 acres of his, I think it is, and he's like, man, the problem is all these wildlife.
Is that the one in Saloon?
No, it's a newer one that's going to be coming up, which I was told that I wasn't allowed to say too much about it, but it's east of there. That I don't think nobody really has heard about yet.
Gotcha. Yeah, we have one that popped up. They're in the middle of building it right now.
I know. Yeah, I know that one. That one's huge too. I don't understand any of them.
I understand technology is technology, and we all use it in one way or another. But I will tell you, I used to ride out to my deer camp on a Friday night as the sun was going down. It was the prettiest sunset in Saloon.
Oh, it's beautiful out there.
Driving west, it's an open valley. You could see 500 acres. The sun, I'd pull off the side of the road sometimes and look at the sunsets, and it was just gorgeous. And now I have a view of a data center.
That's horrible, man.
God.
Every city too. Every city has them though. It's like I don't know. I'm gonna get on a rant here, so I better not. What do you think about the new rule regulations this year? I mean, is it hurting maybe your business per se? Is it the $1 rule that's coming up, and then the earn a buck, and then the baiting? Like, do you see any decrease in clients or like What are you hearing out there?
Well, okay. My opinion. So I'm glad the DNR decided that our deer herd in Michigan is challenged for sure. Part of it is you can hunt deer
9 months out of the year.
You can deer hunt as long as you can watch NFL football.
Yes, it's not longer. Yeah,
which is crazy. I'm glad they did something. I questioned some of the decisions they made. This new baiting thing where you can feed within 300 feet of your house, but you can't hunt over it. Well, so that regulation, if that makes sense to anybody, somebody please explain it to me, because I don't understand how the DNR can think that we decided to get rid of baiting for CWD, but they're not going to catch it as long as they're within 100, 300 feet of your house or whatever the rule is.
Yeah,
I think that's silly. I'm not
and how people are not going to be able to hunt. Like, people are going to still hunt over. They're just not going to directly hunt over it, right? They're going to hunt the main trails that they're going to that bait pile, right? They're still going to hunt over it, but they're not going to be hunting over it.
That'd be the thing they could do. At least they'd get a good hunt out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Without education here, I've never had luck hunting over a bait pile. I used to be the bait guy, right? We'd hunt state land back when it was legal, and from the minute you could put bait out, we were dragging, the legal limit out every single time we went out, and we'd get this place cultivated to the point where there were deer tracks coming in, and you'd sit over it and go, man, all right, 5 minutes before dark, I got a shot at a deer, maybe. And then we figured out that, well, maybe if we move off this bait pile.
Yeah, they're staging out, waiting.
Yeah. Right. There's a staging area around every bait pile, every food source. You just got to find it.
I dealt with that when we were hunting up north when it was all legal and stuff. It was, like I said before we started, you would see the same does, same fawns go through there. It's almost like clockwork. And it's like, it's like that feeling someone's looking at you, but you just don't know where at or something.
Yeah, it's that 4.5-year-old buck.
Yeah, right. I personally, I think that the DNR, I agree. I'm glad that they're like taking steps in what they think is the right idea, like the right way. I think they know that they've messed up so bad where they are just trying to throw things out there at this point and just make it even worse for them. Yeah. And it's like, just bite the bullet and let people bait. Like, just do it. If you already know it's not, the cause of CWD or spreading that, like, just let it go.
They have to realize that it doesn't have any cause and effect on CWD, because if they did, they wouldn't let you bait during the youth hunt,
right?
The veterans hunt
up north,
or this new rule. Right?
It's just all wild to me.
I heard I think it might be just like a staging point, right? Like they're letting this happen now. I don't really care either way if we bait or not, but like I think that's that next step to get it back to baiting, because they're going to see. They're probably going to be like a test run and see if there's any CWD attached to it, and
I don't understand it though. I don't understand why they're like, if they openly admitted that it's not the cause of it, why not just bite the? I think they're trying to figure out a way to not make themselves look worse, but what they're doing is making themselves look 10 times worse. It doesn't make sense.
I'll be the first guy sitting here to tell you, I don't know what the right answer is, and it's obvious they don't either.
Nobody does in reality. I mean, people think they might, but nobody really does. I don't know. You're never going to make everybody happy. That's one thing too. And even this one buck rule, personally, I don't think it's a terrible idea. I don't mind it at all. It's for, in my opinion, getting more out of state hunters to see Michigan as a trophy state, so you get more out of state license. So it's all about the money in aspect.
Everything is.
Exactly. And the people that are upset about that, I don't know why they are, because it's like, why not just shoot does if you're going out there for the meat and carol? If you're not out there to kill for the horn, or you can't eat the horns, what everybody says, why aren't you just shooting a doe? Like, it doesn't make sense why the thought process is to shoot. And again, I'm not saying what to shoot or what not to shoot, but if you can't eat the horns, why not just go after a doe then?
I agree with you.
It doesn't make sense.
There's a lot of properties that I go to. Their buck to doe ratio is like 15 to 1. One of the biggest things I tell them is, hey, you guys need to shoot some does.
Right.
Get a kid out here, and you don't want to shoot a doe, get some kids out to do it. Take some does off your property. Your hunt's going to improve. People think, well, if I have a bunch of does, I'm going to have bucks during the rut.
Right.
It's just the opposite, because they don't need to move around.
They're going to sit still. Those are going to come to them.
Right. Turns into a lockdown situation where that mature buck is going to be locked down with another doe, and he doesn't need to travel a quarter mile.
Right. Yeah. So I don't think people but I don't know. They just don't look at it the right way, I don't think. And it's so hard to, like, who are we to tell them that we're telling them the right thing or the wrong? I don't know. It's hard. But Trav and I have talked about it before, and we talked about it a little bit before the podcast as well, about the youth. And what was the ratio?
So I read a very interesting statistic. It was actually shared from a buddy of mine. He said the average bow hunter, I don't know if it was in Michigan or in the US, was 49 years old.
It's crazy.
So that means that these young kids they'd rather spend time on their phones or playing video games. We need to get these kids out in the woods for sure, because those kids vote. And when they get old enough to vote, if they're not on our side because they don't hunt, then we're going to lose our right.
Look at Oregon.
Right. Yep.
This whole, I mean, and I think one of the reason that, and I could be wrong on this, but there's no like hunt camp anymore, deer camp up north anymore. You know, there's nobody really, I mean, yes, there are people that still do that, don't get me wrong, but there's just not like the bond, the sportsmanship, but you know, everybody's not going up there. Everybody's not going out to get the bar that night before opening day. Like you just don't have that same feeling down here anyway. I feel like that you used to.
We used to do a deer camp up in the Upper Peninsula. My boss and a friend of mine, he owned a couple thousand acres up in La Branch, and he had the most amazing deer camp. And it wasn't that the property was decent.
Mm-hmm.
It was a couple thousand acres, so it better be pretty good, right?
Yeah.
But the camaraderie and the enjoyment,
that's all you cared about.
A deer camp was just, the experience was far better than the hunt could ever be. Getting out with 15 guys that have like interests and common goals. It's just a fantastic camaraderie. We don't have that.
No, that is the one thing that I see, because yeah, the PlayStations, the video games, all that stuff, and I don't know. I don't know what the right way of doing it is, I guess, to get more kids out.
A mentorship program might have an impact on it, getting the kids too early out there with a gun or a bow in their hands. Like when I started, like I had to shoot a bow at 10 years old to be able to legally hunt, and then a rifle at 12. But now, like kids at 5 years old can take a gun out and shoot a deer, and that could potentially turn them off. You know, taking a life of an animal is a big deal. You know, and getting them introduced to it too early on. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, there's a chance that could impact the kid either positively or negatively based on what the are.
And kind of going off of that, Trav, I've asked Trav this before with the 1 buck rule. You know, they're trying to get more does taken out, it seems like, as well, along with obviously the money. Do you think that if the youth season was doe only, do you think that'd be a good thing or a bad thing?
It'd be a great thing. That would work out fantastic.
No, in my opinion, with Trav saying that, with the too young going out, they're shooting that dream buck at that point that they can't even top after that. So why even keep hunting after that?
Yeah, you set that bar, that criteria.
Right. And that's my opinion. I know people, you know, look at it differently. Trav, you know, wants to have Connor go out there, his son, go out there and shoot that buck his first year, which I completely understand, and I'm fine with it too. I just think it's good for having kids look and see that does are okay to take, and how many does would get taken at that point. I mean, there are does taken in the youth season, don't get me wrong, already, but if it was doe only, it would already help with the buck to doe ratio, and I think it would put into kids' minds that, yeah, I can still kill does and everything is good to go. Like, it's still fun to be out here, and it doesn't give them, I don't know,
social media do that for all of us.
That's true too.
Everybody wants to have their picture behind a nice set of antlers. So I'm as guilty as that as anybody.
But for sure, everybody is. I don't care what. Yeah, 100%. Everybody's guilty of social media. But it's hard though too, especially in your shoes. Like, you kind of have to be on the bigger buck side with being land management. You want to show like the progress of people's stuff. So it's hard not to be in that stance.
What I'll do, I enjoy shooting a couple of bucks here, or have the opportunity to.
Right.
I don't do it every year, obviously, but it gives my season a little bit more length. But what I found a lot of enjoyment in as well is going out in the late season with my recurve and trying to shoot a doe. That it's challenging. Just shooting a doe is not very challenging a lot of times.
Right.
So people like to have challenges, and if you're not challenged by shooting a doe, how much fun is it? But getting out there with a recurve or hunting from the ground, that's exciting to do.
I think that's going to be the biggest problem with the rifles down here, in my opinion. Like, for me personally, I'm not going to shoot a deer at 500 yards with a rifle. Like, it's just, there's no challenge in that. You know, I still want to get them in that heart. Even 150, it's not like on the fence per se. Like, I think it still wind you from that far or smell you at that far, but I want them to get in close. Right. Just like turkey.
I don't know if it's big enough. I think I'm taking a poke at it if I'm sighted in for it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I probably would too. I just
learn more from encounters than you do actually killing something. And
Yeah.
as a bow hunter specifically, and I have a 350 Legend.
Mhm.
I haven't shot a deer with it. I love to bow hunt. I learned more from being in the woods with a bow in my hand, seeing deer and how they interact with each other at 15, 20, 30 yards that I ever learned being in the woods with a gun.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, and understand it, but I think it's like the stages of hunting in general too. Everybody's got like the 5 stages per se. Like they just want to kill everything that walks, and then you got like the stage where you want to take people out and see them kill their. I think there's just different stages, and it depends on where people are in that stage.
I was that guy. I still am. I love venison. I like eating it.
Right.
Basically, I love having a freezer full of it. My wife and I eat it in some sort of a meal at least a couple times a week.
Let's take a quick breather from the action. Let's talk promos. Grab 25% off HuntProof with code GREATHP25. Save 20% off Cooler Guard using code GLO. You can take 15% off your order from Hodag using code Great Lakes. And take 10% off Pattern Pros using code Great Lakes 10. Now back to the show.
Before we wrap all of this up, I wanted to touch on a few things that we didn't talk about prior to this. When you go to some of these new properties and, somebody asks you to come out and look at the property, what are some key things that you look at for, if they're wanting to do a food plot or the bedding, or what is like the steps that you look into to get all of that?
First thing I'll do, I like to prepare for each client visit by getting an aerial photo. You go online, I zoom out about a half a mile, sometimes even bigger than that, and I'll see what's in the area. And if it's a heavy ag area, what I'll do is, at that point, we really don't need a whole lot of food. If it's lacking cover, we'll address that. It's really just, I hate to use this term, but addressing the lowest holes in the bucket. Access is super important, as we touched on earlier. Biggest thing I really like to figure out for the client is how are we going to get on this property to hunt it, and which stand, where would the stands be located to hunt successfully, just so that you get longevity out of your season. A lot of times people they love to hunt, and they hunt a lot, and they burn their property out because they walked through the spots they shouldn't have. But zooming out, I find out what the property in the area is lacking. I find out where the majority of the deer would be held in that area. And then I also like to, as we touched on earlier, see what the property owners around them have. And I try and accentuate their property based on what's missing.
Now, what about like food plot wise? What do you look for? Like if someone doesn't know what to plant and kind of just gives you like free range on do whatever you think's best for this food plot. I want to have one here though.
Yep.
What is your thought process going into that?
Well, not every property needs food, but the ones that do, what I'd like to do is I see how much sunlight. First of all, the location of the food plot is very important. The property, if the food plot's in the very center of the property, it's going to be tough to hunt it because you're going to have to circle around, and it makes it challenging. Sunlight, you need sunlight to grow stuff, whether you have 4 hours or 10 hours. That's going to determine what I plant. What's the soil composition? Is there a lot of organic matter? What's a soil sample look like? That's a big thing. Got to get your pH to a certain level to grow anything at all. Certain stuff will grow in just about anything, but the vast majority of stuff that I like to plant, you need a pH of about 6.5 to 7. You need a decent amount of organic matter to hold moisture, especially with the droughts that we've been having in Michigan lately. It's tough to plant something and then see, that most of it died because you didn't have the organic matter to hold the moisture. But what I like to plant for most clients is a clover and chicory blend with a nurse crop of oats over that. And then I'll come back through and I'll overseed with cereal rye or winter wheat, usually sometime in September. And what that does, it gives you a long food plot. The clover is going to be a perennial that comes back year after year. So you plant it once with a little bit of maintenance, it's going to come back for 5 to 8 years with minimal maintenance, other than a couple of mowings a year and some herbicide applications. Doesn't need much fertilizer at all. But I like clover for that reason. The browse, it's super browse tolerant. I mean, you're going to get 3 to 4 tons of food per acre out of a clover plot. But while the clover is establishing, because clover has a root system that needs to develop first before it gets any or very low growth, you need to have a nurse crop with that, which is usually oats. I like the oats because they pop up the ground real quick. The deer hit those and leave the clover alone until the clover starts to develop.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I can see like that they almost, if you don't have that, there's mow the clover right down. You won't even have no.
It's high, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love chicory. Chicory and clover is a 1-2 punch that really does a good job. And chicory has a really deep taproot, has a lot of protein. So when these nursing fawns, these nursing does have fawns, you need protein. Antler development, you need protein for that as well.
Mhm.
I'm not a big fan of planting soybeans in a small plot, just for the simple fact that there's such a high attraction that if you're in a high deer density area and you plant an acre or two of soybeans, you won't have anything to hunt over by the time the season comes around.
Are you big into
alfalfa-
frost seeding your plots at all? Sorry to cut you off there.
No, that's no problem. As far as frost seeding, yeah, that's a good way to rejuvenate an old plot. You can frost seed into clover. If I come in August and I put a clover plot in for you, I always tell my client to go back in, or I can do it for them, and frost seed clover over the bare spots. But to establish a plot just based on frost seeding, it can be done. It's challenging because you're going to have weak competition.
Mm-hmm.
So you better know what you're doing with herbicides if you're going to do a frost seeded plot. It can be done and successfully as well.
What do you have in yours, Trav?
I have a mixture of brassicas, some oats.
Okay. Yeah, I like brassicas for sure. That's a really good later season food plot combination that you have.
Yeah, because I mean, around me, I'm surrounded by ag all around me, so I try to focus on once that ag comes down and there's not much food left because they just get under right away. So I try to have something where they're going to come to my property late season. I'm hunting the edges of the ag fields early season. Then once that crop comes down, they're hopefully coming to my food sources later in the year once that ag comes down.
Smart idea. Yeah, I top dress that with some cereal rye of some sort, and that would also give them. What I like about that is it germinates down to 34 degrees, so it's going to come back and green up really early in the spring when your deer are hungry. And it's not so much of a draw as it's longevity for your deer herd. It gives us something to eat when there's nothing else in the woods.
Would you broadcast that over top of the existing food plot, or do you need to pack that in at all?
No, I'd broadcast it right over it. It'll grow just about anywhere. I've spilled some in my driveway before, my gravel driveway, and I got a mini food plot there. It's the easiest seed to plant. It as long as you have a little bit of sunlight, a little bit of moisture, it's going to grow. I spilled some. I've got a container that I keep all my seed in, and I had some ratchet straps in there. I spilled some, and it rained. I came back a week later to pull my ratchet strap out, and I had about 30 little seeds that were growing, starting to germinate.
In your truck?
On my ratchet strap.
Oh, really?
They grew roots and grew in my ratchet strap. That's how, because the ratchet strap was moist.
Yeah, holy crap.
So yeah, easy food plot. And if you have poor soil, that is an easy thing to get to go. I like fruit trees too. I know that a lot of these guys think, well, why would you plant fruit trees when you have all this food, other food sources, acorns and things? But I like a late season apple tree. Pears and apples are usually a pretty good combination. If you're going to plant apple trees, a disease resistant type is what you want to do. And then the later you can have a late dropping apple tree is a magnet for deer.
Oh, yeah.
And are you focusing more on crab apples, or are you focusing more on like the apples that like we as humans can eat?
Crab apples are really easy. I like crab apples. I like Gold Rush, Enterprise, Liberty, Wolf River. Those are all good apple trees that are disease resistant. I like a crab apple tree because they put out a fair amount of fruit pretty early, and they pollinate every other apple tree in the area because they bloom for such a long period of time.
Yeah, that's kind of what my focus is on behind my barn. I just cleared out a little section of woods to where I'm going to hopefully in the spring go in and plant apple trees to kind of have a later dropping food source where I can have some food source up closer to my house and then have some food source in the back, which maybe not be the smartest idea, but I also want to grow apples on my property as well. And that's the only spot I can do it. Yeah.
I'm sure you can. It's not, I mean, if I can do it, anybody can, right? What I will tell you about apple trees or any fruit tree is you need at least 6.5 hours of sunlight minimum. If not, you're wasting your time. I did a test where I planted 6 apple trees with about 4.5 hours of sunlight, and then 6 other apple trees where they got 8 hours of sunlight. Planted at the same time on the same day in the same soil composition. And the trees that got 8 hours of sunlight are twice as tall and are fruiting. And the ones that are back in the woods a little bit, there's not that big of a difference between 4 hours and 8 hours of sunlight in your mind as you're looking at it going, yeah, there's sun that hits the ground. But the difference between the amount of fruit that I get off of the ones that are in the sun and the trunk diameter at this point and the amount of growth they put on is incredible. compared to being out in the woods. So just make sure your sunlight's there.
And I know you did say something too about, if a property needs it, you're going to put a food plot in it. Do you have a property where you'll go in there and be like, hey, you got enough acorns in here, I can make it work without going in and putting a food plot in? Or is
No, I think acorns are great, but they drop for a certain amount of time and then they're gone. You reds and white oaks, they drop, but it's a huge draw when it's there, but there are certain years that oaks don't drop. Are you going to count on that to draw deer into your property? I'd rather be in control of the food source. And even in a high ag area, like you said earlier, once the farmer discs everything down, you have no control over what's going to happen on your property at that point. If I have a
so what's determining how many food plots you put in to your property or not put into your property?
The size of the property and if it makes sense will determine that. I mean, you could put a food plot in the middle of the woods, but it's probably not going to grow. But if you have an open field and it makes sense to put that food plot in that specific area, I would recommend it.
Is there certain seeds that you use compared to different areas or soil bases?
Yes, the soil sample will tell me about everything that I need to know. I usually ask my client, are you a bow hunter, early season, late season? When do you stop hunting for the year? And if they strictly bow hunt early season, Nebraska's probably not the
to the late season, right?
But as far as the soil sample tells me everything I need to know. Aside from that, the sunlight is important as well. And then there's wet soils, there's sandy soils. I think sandy soil is one of the hardest things to get anything to grow.
That's because it's not holding any moisture at that point. That's the hardest thing.
I mean, even your cereal rye that you talked about, like it still doesn't grow very great with that.
It's not going to grow great. It'll grow, but if you get a drought, you're throwing money away. Cereal rye is the most forgiving seed you can plant. That and white clover are pretty easy to get to grow almost anywhere. But if it's pure sand like a beach, it's tough to get even cereal rye to put any type of growth on.
Yeah, that'd be tough. That would be hard. What if you have a client that reaches out to you and they're in the market of buying a new property and they're looking to see obviously location is a huge thing, but and they want like your opinion on it wise, what are you looking at? What's the process of that?
Well, budget usually determines where they're going to buy and how much they can buy. But a lot of people just look at the size of the property and they think that's what I want. I can buy 50 acres for the same price that I can buy 25 acres, but it's in this area. I'll look that over and tell them, hey, you know what, it may be better to buy a smaller parcel that hunts easier and hunts more efficiently. But the neighborhood is important. If you're going to buy 50 acres and you've got 20 neighbors surrounding your 50-acre parcel, it's probably not going to hunt as good as somebody that has 2 or 3 neighbors.
That's true.
So that's the biggest thing. Access is another thing that I look at. If you can't get on the property without moving deer off the property, if it's important to you to be able to hunt, it's probably the wrong property for you. I looked at 44 properties before I bought mine, and my wife and I would get in the car after work. We'd drive around all over. I want to be an hour from where I live. And she was tired of it. She's like, after a year and a half, she goes, what are we doing? We're burning gas. I said, I'll find the right one eventually.
Right.
And she had no idea because we walked a lot of properties together. And I kind of knew what I was looking for. And nothing checked all the boxes until the piece that I bought now.
That's going to be a hard thing, especially if like the client likes that property per se, but wants to use it for deer hunting. It's probably going to be hard to kind of tell them to lean off of that piece and not go after because it's not going to be exactly what they
right. There's a lot of emotion that goes into buying
right
as well. And if it's a deer-centered property and you're going to use it to deer hunt, not to ride four-wheelers, not to ride your bikes. If you're just going to use it to deer hunt, there's a specific criteria that I look for. It's just some people it doesn't really matter, and those people aren't the people calling me normally.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. I mean, it all depends on what people want out of their own property, how much time they want to put into it, and I guess they don't have time to call you. And
there's people that do this as a hobby. They deer hunt as a hobby, and there's people that do it as a passion. And my client's usually the person that wants to or has bought 40 to 120 acres, 200 acres, and they want to use it to have a deer camp. Not just the guy that wants to, hey, I want to go out and use it to ride four-wheelers on and maybe shoot a deer once in a while.
Right. What is some of the biggest mistakes that you see people doing without hiring someone like yourself or other, land management groups that, they're making this easy mistake that they could be getting away with?
Putting the food source in the wrong spot. growing a food plot, planting a food plot is not that hard. The hard part is making sure it's in the right location so you can actually hunt your property without disturbing the deer. I treat my food plots like a sanctuary where I don't want to blow them out. So just because the field's open and there's a great spot to put a food plot because you have open space doesn't necessarily mean that's the right spot to put it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Definitely makes sense.
How often do you get returning clients, or do you get a lot of people that are like, hey, I want you to help me out, get my property going, and then I'm going to take it from there? Because that's kind of like, I feel like an end goal, right? For you is like, hey, I'm teaching these people how to do this to then for them to do it themselves. Or are you trying to keep these people year after year after year?
I would say that I get probably 50% returns. There's some clients that don't want to do anything on their property. They just want to go on October 1st and grab their bow and go hunt. Or they don't have time, or they're an absentee landowner that they don't have the time to commit. They've got kids in sports. I've got one client in particular that I'm thinking of. He's got 80 acres, also in Manchester. And he's just calls me, hey, Mike, tell me what I need and tell me what I owe you. And, every year he's a repeat customer. I have a handful of those, probably half of them. And then there's people that you come out, you plant, show them what to do, and they take it from there.
Yeah, that's pretty
It's got to be kind of a hard thing, though, for you guys. I mean, it's almost like, I don't know, you tell them the way, and then you can help that property out as much as you can and point them in the right direction. And then all of a sudden they're just steering it the other way, and then it goes downhill. And I don't know. There's got to be just a lot of.
Yeah, I care about these people's property like I do my own.
Right.
I want, I love shooting big deer, but I also love it when my client shoots a big deer and I get the picture from them, or their kid or their granddaughter. I get that picture of their granddaughter holding the doe, and I get as excited as if I shot a deer myself. It's like my own excitement.
For sure.
Do you have any horror stories from properties
Uh-oh.
that you would share?
I planted a plot
anything.
I planted a plot for a guy. I guess it's really not a horror story. I planted a plot for a guy a few years ago, and it was perfect. It looked really nice. Everything was coming up just perfect. And then his kid got a 4-wheeler and go ride in the open. He's riding around the open field. I think the kid did it without the dad's permission. He just thought it was this open field back here where I've always, that's a great spot to ride. And he destroyed the plot. So I had to go back in and fix it. I've had a few plots that I planted, and I've got one particular client that he had another guy come out and till for him for about 10 years in a row. He'd till and plant, till and plant, till and plant. He had such poor soil because of the repeated tilling that I had a hard time getting anything to hold enough moisture to grow. So I finally said, I don't know what you're planting before, but I'm going to get in here. We're going to till it one more time. And I'm only going to plant for you if we promise we're not going to have anybody else till this for about 5 years. So I planted a nice clover blend for him, and it looks like a field of dreams at this point. It looks fantastic. But he went through the process of tilling every year and just decimating his soil each and every time he did it. That was challenging. And then we had a drought that, I had to.
This dry summer's probably been horrible.
Yeah, it really is. But you're only as good as the amount of rain you get. Your forecast will make you look really good or make you look really stupid. But just
I guess what's your policy? What's your policy like on? Because I know you said like you can't control Mother Nature. Like you go in, you plant this amazing food plot, you get no rain, nothing grows. I guess what's your policy to go back in and plant?
I've had one experience where it grew. We got a drought. It didn't rain for about 40 days and it was hot and I thought it died. So my policy is I'll go back and reseed for you based on that. I can't control the weather, but I can control my relationship with the customer. At the end of the day, the goal is to keep people happy, keep them spreading my name and get me back there. And I make friends. A lot of these people become my friends over the course of a few years. So I'll come back in. I'm not going to plant a new food plot for them, but I will overseed with oats and, either oats or cereal rye. Just to give them something to hunt over.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. I mean, I guess I never even thought about like the sun hitting the floor in the woods and how much of the food that can grow. I mean, how much that can affect the deer staying around until you said that today. I don't know. I never really thought about that stuff. And hearing land management, like you just think food plots and not just everything else per se, so it's been interesting hearing about all that stuff.
Yeah, sunlight's huge because those are all your clover leaves are solar panels. They all photosynthesize to create protein and sugars and things that make them palatable. And I've had plots where they're right on the fringe of where I probably should not plant because you're getting a little deep in the woods. You can tell the deer specifically choose the plants that are growing in the sunlight because they sweeten up. They're more palatable. And deer know they're selective browsers. They know based on what they eat what nutritional value is in each plant.
I mean, yeah, it all makes sense for sure. I think it's just a very easily overlooked thing for a lot of people as well.
There's a couple of things that create big antlers. Time is number one.
Well, for sure.
Number two is the protein intake. That's you can control the time to a certain point. You can put a few years on a deer if you're watching them. He happens to stick around. You've got enough property, but if they don't get the sunlight into the protein, it makes it challenging to get the potential out of that deer.
Right. Well, I greatly appreciate you coming in and just talking food plots and land management, and I learned a lot on all this stuff on deer hunting, and just it's kind of refreshing per se to get back into it and learn all this stuff and new things that have been going on in the deer world per se. Where can people find you, contact you, get a hold of you for you to come out and possibly help them out?
I have a Facebook page called Full Draw Land Management, and it's easy to find on Facebook, and my cell phone number's on there. Feel free to reach out, email me if you'd like. My email is huntclub@gmail.com. That's a Full Draw huntclub@gmail.com, or you can call me on my cell phone. That's on my Facebook page as well. But reach out to me if you need some help. I love hearing from you afterwards, especially if I do some work for you. I love the stories afterwards, the pictures, and everything goes along with it. So thanks for having me.
And we'll also drop that
awesome.
information in the bio too, so everyone has that information. So
yeah, everybody will be able to go on our social media and see all. Yeah, so
send me my Gmail.
Yeah, do that. We'll post it below. But yeah, again, I appreciate you coming out. I appreciate everybody tuning in on this week's podcast, and hopefully you learn a thing or two. And hunting season's gonna be here before you know it.
Yeah,
it's coming up quick. So
I'm excited for it. Hopefully we get a cold front.
maybe a little bit more rain too. We need that. Well, I guess we're getting it tonight though. No,
6:30. We got a good one coming through.
Right.
So plant your Nebraska.
get out there now.
Get those fall food plots in today.
Yeah.
So I appreciate again, Mike. Thanks everybody for tuning in this week's podcast, and we'll see you guys on the next one.